Great Filter is a Phobos Tech podcast. All proceeds go to fund the STEM Theory Research Project. Inspired by the economic systems of both Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek and Ian M. Banks' Culture series, STEM theory aims for a cleaner, healthier future for all of humanity. Go to thegreatfilterpodcast.com to like, rate, subscribe, or follow us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and more. The Great Filter has adopted the No Pass directive. That's no placements, ads, spots, or sponsors. So check out the support link at thegreatfilterpodcast.com and consider becoming a monthly contributor. Options are as low as 99 cents per month. Thank you. Will we be the filtered or the filtrate? This is the Great Filter. If your theory is found to be against the second law of thermodynamics, I can give you no hope. There is nothing for it but to collapse in deepest humiliation. Sir Arthur Stanley Eddington. All right, you may have guessed that we are going to be talking a little bit about thermodynamics today. And yes, that opening quote is actually going to come into some pretty heavy play here, and we're going to just explain everything. So this episode, we are going to be taking everything we've been talking about so far, part 1, part 2, part 3, and we are going to be bringing it all together, mixing it up, and making this make sense. I know it may feel like it's just been kind of taking, random pathways all over the place and talking about just about everything, but we're going to be bringing it all into a very, very centered focus today. And so let's get started. First, I want to bring up episode 1. We talked about the giant paywall. We talked about the separation that we have created between ourselves as individual organisms and our needs for both survival and optimization or self-actualization. What I really want to focus on here, though, is the pay part of the paywall. We're going to be talking about money, specifically what economists call the 3 functions of money. This is going to really help us understand exactly what money is and how exactly it works. Now, originally, I believe there were 4 functions of money, but they found that the 4th function could actually be described through the other 3 functions, so we're not going to cover that. But currently, today, the recognized 3 functions of money are 1, unit of account, 2, medium of exchange, and 3, a store of value. Okay, so I'm going to give you a brief definition and explanation of each of these 3 functions. So you understand when an economist says or talks about any one of these 3 functions, what exactly they're referring to. So the first is a unit of account. This is probably what you think it is. It's basically the capability of ledgering it, right? Something that you can ledger. So a unit of account is really just having something that's quantifiable that you can track with basically mathematics. The second is a medium of exchange. And again, this is probably what you're thinking, but what we're talking about here is something that we can use to represent the value of any number of any other things. This is supposed to help avoid situations like trying to trade a cow for, say the only thing that you have is a cow and you need a dozen eggs. Well, how are you going to work this trade out with the chicken farmer? Enter money. Now we can make the exchange without trying to figure out these often very difficult bartering situations. And finally, the third is the store of value. What this allows is for you to be able to store the value of the exchanges that you perform throughout the day. So the apple farmer sells all of his apples, he between, I guess it's September and October, and then he's got a whole year to wait before his next harvest. So he's able now to sell all of his apples and store the money that he got from those sales without having to worry or deal with apples that begin to rot and corrode over time. So instead of, trying to keep all of his apples and then sell them as he needs money, now he's capable of selling off all of his apples, taking the money, putting it in storage, and using the money as his needs arise accordingly. All right, so those were your three functions of money. Okay, and now we're going to kind of totally switch topics here, and we're going to talk about thermodynamics. And there is a reason for this, and we will get to that in a little bit. But I'm going to explain these concepts very clearly. I've got some examples to help with understanding these. So don't fret if you're not a science person, or if you're not into, if you're not a particle physicist or a chemist. Okay. So there are 4 laws of thermodynamics. The 0th, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. I know it's odd to have a 0th law, but that's how it kind of played out. So that is that. Okay, so the 0th law basically says that if you had, say, 3 cups of coffee, all right, and cup A was 120 degrees, cup B was 120 degrees. So cup A is equal thermally to cup B. Okay, it's the same temperature. And if cup B was, if there's a third cup C, and it's 120 degrees, well, you could say that B and C are equal too. So if A is equal to B and B is equal to C, then A is also equal to C. So that's about it. Okay, well, that's not about it, but that's the general idea. All right, the 0th law is the law of thermal equilibrium. The first law of thermodynamics is the law of conservation. The law that says, and this should definitely ring a bell, that you cannot create or destroy energy. Okay, this is the law of conservation. The second law is the law of entropy. This is the law that today's quote referenced. Okay, the law of entropy. And the law of entropy basically states that entropy always increases. Now, for our purposes, you know what? Actually, let's cover the third law really quickly. Then we'll circle back around here. Okay, third law is something that in our context we don't even really have to worry about, but just for the sake of just keeping the 4 laws and explaining them all together, the third law of thermodynamics, a bit of a bizarre one. The basic idea is that a perfectly crystalline structure at 0 degrees Kelvin has an entropy of 0. So it's kind of not super relevant to our situation, but it is an important law. Otherwise, so yeah, give credit where credit is due, I suppose. Okay, now the big elephant that's in the room that we need to take care of is what the fuck is value? When we say, that money is a store of value, that it represents a value, that it is a unit of account of a value, it's a medium of exchange as a value. What is that? What does that even mean to us? Well, value really has no direct tie to energy or matter or the usefulness of something. It is, value is a figment of our imaginations. Value really has no bearing on the physical world. Now, our ancestors that, when money was kind of introduced and created and the idea of exchange and what is valuable, what is not, they really didn't understand the world the way that we do today. So you can't really pin the blame on anybody, but it kind of is our fault for perpetuating this, for sticking with this idea of value. And let me explain this, because this is really central to why this whole thing is so fucked up, and why there are so many problems that just kind of sprout from this idea. So let's think about like what is meant when somebody says the educational value of something, or that has potential value, or it's a valuable idea. An experience is valuable. Food has value. It has nutritional value. I mean, we use this word in so many crazy different ways that philosophers, economists have had a hell of a time really trying to pin down what exactly value is. There's a few different ideas out there, and most of them really orient around just the basic idea that value is simply sentiment, how we feel about something. Okay. And you might say, well, that's not true. Food really does have value. I value food because it provides energy for my body. And yes, it does. But the value does not come from the energy that it provides to your body. The value actually comes from the fact that you value your body receiving energy. And let me explain this a little bit more. True value comes from, as I said, how it makes us feel. So if something makes you feel good, drugs have value because they make people feel good. Food has value because it makes you feel good. Well, what about the things that don't immediately make you feel good, like exercising, pumping iron, working really hard till your muscles are sore and fatigued? It still has value because it will make you feel good later. The runner's high, right? Even though you don't feel great just starting off, after about a good 15, 20 minutes of a good solid run, you start to feel the endorphins pumping through your system, right? And you're, wow, man, I'm really feeling good. That's the value. It's a delayed value. You don't get it right off the bat, but it has value to it. It makes you feel good. Not just how it makes you feel like instantaneously in the moment right then and there, but how it makes you feel knowing that your body is healthy. You are on track to becoming a healthier person. Same thing with weightlifting, right? You don't specifically enjoy feeling sore and tired, but you do enjoy the health benefits and how that makes you feel. Is that worth it? Is it worth going through, the kind of the tough part to receive the health benefits and feeling good benefits? Like, I like how I look when I'm fit, when I exercise every day. I like it. It makes me feel good. So value is totally reducible to sentiment, how it makes you feel. Now, the thing that blows my mind is that we are currently in the year 2021, and we still run our entire economic system on the value of $1. But wait a second, value is completely subjective. It's based on emotion. It's based on how you feel about something. And emotions are inherently unstable. So we've got a worldwide market that we utterly and completely have rooted our livelihood into, yet it is inherently unstable. It is the most unstable thing. Have you ever watched the marketplace and values just jumping all over the place? These values are totally based on opinion. 100%. The people that kind of, I guess, influence the value of different companies' stocks, their influence is totally based on opinion. Yeah, sure. You've got the guys that, do market analyses and go through and check out a company and list out all of their assets and try to figure out the value of everything and their employees and yada, yada, yada. But when it really comes down to it, like, it's really kind of a judgment call at the end. Like, they're probably about, worth about $3 billion. It's completely crazy. Think about just how crazy volatile it is. Elon Musk and China, right? Elon Musk posted a post about that his company is going to be getting or selling off their Bitcoin or something to that effect. And China makes Bitcoin mining, they start coming down on Bitcoin miners, right? What happens? It completely crashed the system across the entire planet just because of these two incidents. The whole GameStop fiasco. Musk again, right? When he smoked some weed on Joe Rogan's podcast, their stock tanked. See, opinion influences the market. Why would we ever construct a system like this? We have over and over and over and over and over again felt the negative effects of having what we need as a stable system totally built on something that is just jello, like literally just complete nonsense. Now, not only is it a bad idea to root something that's supposed to be stable or that we rely on to be stable in something that is inherently unstable. So, that's strike one, right? Not only is that like a major problem with the system, but two of the three functions of money are in direct conflict with three of the four laws of thermodynamics. And let me explain. Actually, before I explain, let's revisit this episode's quote, because I think this is going to make a little bit more sense now. Okay, now remember, this is a quote by Sir Arthur Stanley Eddington. He says, "If your theory is found to be against the second law of thermodynamics, I can give you no hope. There is nothing for it but to collapse in deepest humiliation." I am going to show you and leave absolutely no question of it, right, without a shadow of doubt, that our use of money, the three functions of money, how we use money, what money is in direct conflict with three of the four laws of thermodynamics. And this has a profound impact on how we use energy, how efficient we are with our energy use. As a part of my research, I've traced out several of these threads, and several is a understatement, like a lot, okay? And each one is indisputably connected to the fact that money is not, that we are trying to force a pretend system onto a physical world that follows physical laws, and that just doesn't work. We are, without realizing it, we are building up just an incredible amount of entropy, and it's fucking us off. Like, oh God, I wish I could just get like a $1 billion grant to just dive into this research, full throttle, because this is something that needs to be known by everybody. We've got to figure something else out. It is so fucking nuts. I've estimated, my current estimate is that between 80 and 90% of all work performed by humans is completely wasted and just lost to the entropy of the system. Completely. Like, poof, gone. 80 to 90%. Like, what the fuck? And we were like, scratching our heads trying to figure out why we can't feed everybody on the planet and why people don't have jobs and why all these fucked up things are always happening. I can tell you exactly why. Because between 80 and 90% of everything that you are doing is going right the fuck out the window. And a large part of this is because of the whole, this value problem, right? How do you quantify value? It's this fabrication, this thing that we make up. And here's the kind of weird thing about this, all of this. We tend to confuse value with energy. And it's not. It's completely not. So when we think of value, we think, okay, how much energy do we need for the system to work, right? How much energy is required here? Gasoline has value because it has energy. No. That's not at all, not even close to how it works. Gasoline has value because you like to be able to get places on your own that are far away without relying on public transportation or, a horse or whatever, right? You like to have that freedom. You like to have that capability. You need to get to work. You need to take your kids to school. That's why it has value, because you like the things that you can get from utilizing it in or with your vehicle. Nothing whatsoever to do with energy at all. It is a completely separate entity, a unit. So towards the end of this episode, we're going to go over a theory I call harmonized state potential, which may be able to answer this as a problem, right? It's in its infancy, and it's got a lot of work. But as far as I can tell, it's capable of replacing what we think of as value. It's capable, not replacing, it's capable of merging the two in a productive sort of way, in a useful and efficient manner. Well, theoretically, right? Have you ever worked with somebody or just known somebody that makes everything way more difficult than it needs to be? You know the kind of person I'm talking about, right? They're usually kind of a teddy bearish, kind of lovable person, and you hate to get mad at them, but they're just always making everything so fucking difficult. It's like, it's just one of those situations. It's really frustrating. Yeah. By the end of this episode, you're going to see humanity like that. You're going to be like, oh my God, why are we doing it like this? What the fuck? Guys, come on. What are we doing? How are we possibly okay with what we're doing right now? Hopefully. That's kind of my that's kind of my goal here. All right. And now let's start to kind of, bring this in and start weaving everything together here. So to start this off, the Royal Institution, they were founded in about 1800. It's in, I believe, the city of Westminster in London, England. And this is kind of one of those forums that you see in a lot of the old movies, where people would get together and share experiments and give talks and very science-based, physicists and chemists. Anyway, their YouTube channel, if you aren't subscribed or if you haven't heard of this, I highly recommend it. A lot of really interesting talks and just information and videos are on their channel. But anyway, they did a series about explaining thermodynamics, and they have a monthly, in their title it says monthly-ish, kind of mail call where they just go through questions that have been asked and they answer them. So one of the questions asked in the third video, or in the third mailbag video, reads, quote, "Is there anything at all known to us that doesn't follow the A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C?" Question mark. Phrased kind of weird, but they're basically asking, is there anything that we know of that doesn't hold to the zeroth law of thermodynamics? And this is exactly what he says. Quote, "Actually, yes. there's many systems that aren't transitive. Rock, paper, scissors, for example. In a transitive system, rock beats scissors and scissors beats paper. Then rock would also beat paper. But the opposite's actually true. You can find examples of intransitivity all around you. Food chains aren't transitive, sets aren't transitive, economics, psychology, the list goes on. I would like to highlight that he acknowledges that economics is not transitive, or that it does not adhere to one of the laws of thermodynamics. Okay, now I'm only going to take a couple of seconds on this particular topic because it can get really complicated, and the economic studies that people have done for this, for intransitivity in economics are really convoluted, and there's a lot of disagreement as far as study design, the interpretations of the data, because here's the thing. Within these studies, these are preference studies. So they're looking at human preferences and determining how preferences vary from one product or idea or whatever to the other. So let's say you and your friends want to go out to eat, and the options are McDonald's, KFC, and say Subway, okay? And you've expressed that you would prefer KFC over McDonald's, and moments later, you make another expression that you would prefer Subway over KFC. Then right before you're about to leave, you say, wait, never mind, let's just go to McDonald's, because you've thought about it, and it's the least expensive option. See, the problem here is that you have said you prefer KFC over McDonald's, and then you prefer Subway over KFC. So it should naturally follow that you would prefer Subway over McDonald's. But then a different perspective kicks into your mind. You start thinking about how much it's going to cost, and then you decide that now you would prefer McDonald's over Subway. These are the kind of variables and aspects that they look at in these studies. And I just want to point out that for me, the biggest flaw in these studies, the biggest problem that we have when we're trying to determine behavior, right? We're trying to really take a close look at preference intransitivity. Not one study, not one researcher has chosen to look at the dynamics of a self-actualizing individual's preferences. I mean, right off the bat, from what we know of the attributes of a self-actualizing person, the frequency with which they display preference intransitivity, I would hypothesize that it would be much lower than that of the status quo. The goal of being human is to self-actualize. When you pull the curtains back and take a look at what's really there, that really is what every single individual is here for. Self-actualization should be what everybody is shooting for. But as we begin to add more and more layers of abstraction from what the center of our reality should be to what reality is when we're trying to run all of these other structures on top of humanity, like a currency-driven economy, we lose that focus. We lose that sense of what should be our goal. I mean, go down the list. Think about all of the problems that we have today, all of the major issues that people are complaining about, what you hear on the news. Privacy, for instance. Why is privacy an issue? Walk it backwards. Look at what the roots of this are. It comes down to money. Think about ads. Just for shits and giggles, I have been collecting all of the junk mail that has been coming through snail mail. And there were 3 postcards. This is just from last Friday to Tuesday. So there were 3 postcards, 5 enclosed mailings that were between 1 to 3 pages each, 1 newsprint magazine of 20 pages, 1 magazine print magazine, both of coupons of 40 pages. Now, I jumped online to see how much it costs to do mass mailings of these. And I got the number for mailing out 25,000 of each one of these. Now, considering that with mass mailing, the average percentage of individuals that you reach that actually come to you, that call the number or come into your store with a coupon, is about 1%. Okay, 1 out of 100 people that get your mailing are going to act on it. And that's still not a guaranteed sale. So if we were to just take this as an average, all right, this is every 5 days per 25,000 people. This is $2,441,624,208 every 5 days. In 1 year, okay? In 1 year, that means that per 25,000 people, just per 25,000 people, or let's see. Shit. Oh, no. I'm sorry. I calculated this for the U.S. population. Okay. So within 1 year, given that, what I just described, 3 postcards, the enclosed mailings, and the newsprint and magazine print coupon booklets. Let's say that's about what the average everybody gets every 5 days. So that would come out to be 178,283,567,184. That is mostly wasted. And I'm not just talking about money, right? That is so much material, just wasted material. They're basically just littering. They might as well just go dump it out in the streets. Who cares if they get 1%, a sale from 1 out of every 100 people? How much do they have to waste to get there? That is what I'm talking about. That is why that is a result of the fact that 2 out of the 3 functions of money are in direct conflict with 3 of the 4 laws of thermodynamics. It is a direct result of that. And this is just mailings, right? This is just snail mail. I mean, you can go down the list and find it. Just work it out, calculate it. Spam, just everything. Think about what happened during COVID. Why people continued to move from country to country. The majority of it was financially based. Families were on vacation. They were off in another country, and they had already paid for the entire European trip or whatever. They had already paid for all the hotel rooms. They had already paid for all the plane flights, and they weren't about to just waste that. So again, another direct result of this. Just think about the functions of money, what they represent, and how they contradict the laws of thermodynamics. This is a direct result of that. Businesses would have representatives in other countries doing the same thing, already paid for. The tentative deal, right, that the representative was there for, how much that is worth. This all comes back to the fact that we think we can circumvent thermodynamics by using money, and we fucking can't. And it's destroying our planet, rapidly. I took let's jump onto crime really quick. I took the FBI's crime statistics for 2018, and it took me a minute. I had to go through all of their stats. I had to break it all down, but my analysis shows that over 98% of all crimes are financially motivated. 98%. I mean, let that sink in. Let that really sink into your mind. 98% of all crime ever is financially motivated. And tell me that does not trouble you. Corruption, obviously. Pollution. Toxins in our food. They use toxins and preservatives in our food that aren't good for us because it's cheap. Speeding and parking tickets. This is okay. So you might not see the direct relationship here. So let me just kind of spell it out for you. It's not so much about keeping people safe. If it was, they would get pulled over and some other process, some process of some method to try to remedy the behavior, not by giving them a ticket that they can pay $30 to get rid of, or $300, or whatever the citation just happens to be. Inflicting a financial penalty on people doesn't fix the behavior. It never has. When has it ever fixed a behavior? We know for a fact that it doesn't fix behaviors. So why do we do it? Well, if we know it doesn't fix the behavior, it's a pretty consistent income stream for the state. I mean, that's the fact. It's not like they don't know it doesn't fix these behaviors. They know it doesn't. There have been studies on it. So why do they keep doing it? Come to your own conclusion, but I think it's a fairly obvious logical jump. Cyber crimes. Oh dear. All of the ransomware attacks that have been happening lately. What is that about? Right. It's a direct result of us thinking again that we can sidestep reality. And you know what the really, really bad one is? Credit and interest rates. Do you know what this, thermodynamically, right? When you look at what credit and interest rates are, what this is basically an attempt to do is to not just sidestep thermodynamics, but wind it backwards, create energy out of nothing. Whereas most materials, like foods, things that are valuable to us, vehicles, things that run down over time, which is everything in our reality, we're not just trying to sidestep it with credit and interest rates. We're trying to reverse entropy. Okay, we're trying to, as time goes on, instead of things deteriorating in worth and value, we are trying to force them to increase. Well, what does that do? That amplifies by orders of magnitude the rate of entropy dispersion. Credit and interest rates are so poisonous to the efficient handling of energy as a species. It's like, I don't know, it's just a straight toxin to it. It literally makes it impossible to handle energy and value in a productive and efficient manner on any level. It's a complete slide backwards. Credit and interest is like taking one step forward and sliding back 50 steps. That's how just fucking crazy this shit is. So 8.8% of the world's population are undernourished. That means that they don't have a caloric intake sufficient to sustain themselves. 22% of children younger than 5 are stunted, physically stunted, as a result of poor nutrition. 1 in 4 people globally, that's 1.9 million people, are moderately or severely food insecure, and 9% of the world's population, that's 697 million people, twice the population of the United States, are severely food insecure. And we're just vaporizing all of our energy and work by using money either totally incorrectly, or we just need to find a different sort of system of resource allocation and distribution. Because it's like jumping in a hamster wheel and running your ass off. And the hamster wheel's connected to all these gears and pulleys, and it's got little wheels, and you're trying to get to work. So it's kind of like a little self-moving machine, right? So you're just running your ass off in this little hamster wheel, and you get out and you've moved an inch. That's what it's like. That's what we are doing by using money in the way that we are using it, in a way that is in direct conflict with the laws of thermodynamics. It's fucking crazy. And it is even crazier that so few people have picked up on this. Money distracts us, and it hijacks our natural motivations. It does. Everything we think about every day is Do I have enough money for that? How can I get enough money for that? Everything, food, clothing, shelter, everything is filtered through money. It literally hijacks our motivations and distracts us from what the important foci should be. When you use money the way that we have been using it, as we've already confirmed, most of your hard work just vanishes into thin air. I mean, just gone. It's fucking gone. Where did all that hard work go? I don't know. But think about this. So because of this, we have to work harder, longer, right? Just to convert about 10% of our hard work into a usable product or service form. And if you are working for somebody, dude, we are talking about you getting back fractions of a percentage from all of the work that you have expended. Does that not piss you off? And here's kind of where the vicious cycle comes in, right? Because we do this, the consequences of such a radically wasteful system are that we are left with very little extra time for pondering, thinking, educating the self, going to school, working on bettering one's self. No fucking wonder nobody's self-actualizing. There are so few people that are legitimately self-actualizing individuals. Not even most of the rich people are. Even though they have all the resources there, they don't know how to do it. That's why there are so many just disgruntled, wealthy people. You know, like the kind of idea that the wealthy person is kind of an asshole, rich people are assholes kind of idea. That's where that comes from. It's not that all rich people are assholes, but it's that, you know, family money, right? Old money is in the family and you're kind of forced into the family business and it's not something you want to do. That sort of whole dynamic keeps even them from self-actualizing. This isn't something that just middle income and lower would benefit from. This is something everybody would benefit from if we found a different system to rely on, other than something that is physically, according to science, impossible. So, yeah, I mean, everything we need is behind the massive artificial paywall. Our entire focus is on obtaining more money so that we can get what's behind the paywall. Hence, the distraction from the more important things that we need to be focusing on, like bettering ourselves. Sir Isaac Newton invented calculus during a bubonic plague outbreak. Okay, he quarantined himself in a family home and just started going at it and invented calculus, right? Along with Leibniz, but you know, that whole debate. Anyway, my point is, I've got to wonder how many Newtons and Einsteins and Euclids that we have completely tossed out because we've got things so fucking mixed up. How many of these people have we just tossed away because we never gave them the fucking chance to self-actualize? It's not handfuls. It's like boatfuls. It's like countries worth. I mean, it really is. So while episode 3 should still be kind of fresh in your mind, I wanted to quickly lay out something that I didn't then, that I definitely need to hear because it is so relevant. And this is the attributes, the actual attributes of a self-actualizing, transcending, optimizing individual. All right, self-actualizing individuals seek peak experiences. What's a peak experience? This is what, you know, spiritual people refer to as spiritual experiences. This is what the scientifically minded person refers to as epiphanies, great epiphanies, peak experiences, you know, having that great idea click or having a great life-changing realization. These are peak experiences. Buddhists refer to these sorts of things often as enlightenment, right? Having that sense of a oneness with the universe around you. Peak experiences. So self-actualizing individuals seek these sorts of epiphanies and sensations, all right? They are emotionally intelligent, meaning they are keyed in, right? They're totally dialed into other people's emotions. They can read them and understand them. They feel them. They can sympathize and empathize. But they don't like to see other people suffer. They're highly creative. As people begin to actualize, their creativity, their capacity for creativity and problem solving, right? Problem solving skills and creativity increases dramatically, among other sorts of intelligence factors. They become less self-centered, not the bad kind of self-centered, but less focused on themselves because they spent that entire time, focusing on themselves. And to get to becoming an actualizing individual, and then their focus switches, right? Their polarity flips, and they begin to focus on those around them, the world around them, on society, on humanity. They become more aware of society as a singular unit, like what I was talking about earlier. So yeah, their concerns and their focus that has been so so intensely focused on themselves migrates outward to society. Maslow himself even, he recognized the absurdity and the seeming irony in this sort of flip, right? This flip from being egocentric and centered on the self to being society-centric and centered on those around you. And yeah, Maslow just thought it was just a really unexplainable, really weird phenomenon. Like, he didn't understand it, why that was happening, why it was just this sudden polar switch. That, after some period of time, after being totally, ultimately, self-centered, advancing oneself, educating oneself, bettering oneself in all relevant matters, and then there's this abrupt shift that occurs where their focus migrates outwards. Now, given everything that we've talked about and based on everything that we've kind of, brought up now, what would a perfectly optimized society look like? Obviously, it would be where everybody was self-actualizing, right? I mean, that would be what we should all be shooting for, right? I mean, I don't see any other sort of real major goalpost that we should all be working for other than just that. Okay, I'd like to just quickly reflect back to last episode's opening quote, part 3. Remember, it was from Scott Kaufman's book, Transcend. And it said, quote, "The following statement was strongly correlated with viewing your job as a calling. If I was financially secure, I would continue with my current line of work even if I was no longer paid." End quote. I mean, did you feel that? How just dense and important that is? You don't need money to motivate people. In fact, there have been a large number of studies performed that suggest that not only is money a poor motivator, that there's a cap. There's like this short little motivation blip where it does motivate you, to get raises and to earn more and more. After you surpass that little blip, right? It actually begins to harm production and motivation. And, another point I forgot to mention, that self-actualizing individuals, because they are intrinsically driven, because they are intrinsically motivated, production from a self-actualizing person, like in the workplace, production far exceeds the production of others. They produce better quality work. They produce better quality products. This should be a no-brainer. We have enough science to show that this is the case. Yet we continue to dawdle because we are so globally brainwashed into thinking that money is the way to do it, or that the way we use money is the way to do it. And it is obviously not. So if every single capable person was self-actualizing, and if we structured our society to make the self-actualization of the self and of others, help induce it in others, right? Or help build the environment necessary for others to blossom in their own self-actualization. Quick side note before we move on, I did say if every capable individual was optimizing, right? There's been a small percentage of people that we simply don't know. I don't think the research has been done. And we're talking about 1% of the population, and I am referring to the 1% of the population that we traditionally refer to as psychopaths. Now, psychopaths have been shown to largely have frontal lobe damage, like prefrontal cortex, frontal lobe area, in the emotional centers, in the critical thinking sort of areas. So these people, even though they can't self-actualize, it really isn't their fault. They just don't have the hardware necessary. And I don't think in a society where as many people as possible were self-actualizing, I don't think we would have a difficult time finding a way to fit psychopaths into that framework. Sociopaths are a different story. Sociopaths are a product of environment and experience. In the case of the sociopath, this would simply be remedied by ensuring that most people are self-actualizing. Because when people are self-actualizing, right, marital fights don't break out. Oh, that's another thing. The number one cause of divorce is what? I mean, you should know this. Fucking money, right? Anyway, back. Okay, so when people are self-actualizing and good relationships, and everybody's educated on how to have good relationships, and everybody has what they need to light that internal fire of self-motivation and intrinsic motivation, the spousal beating, child beating, raping, and all these horrible situations that arise would be dramatically reduced. Dramatically. Almost to the point where it would be like a shocker if it happened. Like, whoa, he did what? Holy shit. So, I will leave some links. There's going to be a lot of links in the episode description for this episode. I've cited a lot of things that you're probably going to want to cross-reference and double-check. So there's going to be a lot up there, just so you know. Now, the last thing that we really need to help kind of bring this puzzle together is something I started with. The question of what is value? What does value mean, right? And we talked about earlier, we determined that value is the sense of, is some emotional reaction to something, whether it's because our body needs that to survive, or whether it's because it's something that we want. Anything that drives our desires induces this subjective imprint of value on that thing. Well, I kind of explained earlier that I was going to talk about something called harmonized state potential. And I believe this is a way that we can actually quantify what value is with the sort of requirement that money is redesigned or rethought out, or we figure out a different system, because simply having money and using it the way that we do, it would make it very difficult to implement harmonized state potential as a method of determining value without people doing what they do, right? Cheating, lying, misreporting value breakdowns. So here, yeah. So I'm just going to lay it out. Okay, this is harmonized state potential. Now, first, to kind of like prime the pumps here, entropy is not a bad thing. Okay, entropy itself, the fact that entropy increases and propagates throughout a system, it's not a bad thing. Entropy is what causes energy to mutate and transfer and change forms, and that is what allows life. So entropy is necessary. We need a system with entropy in it for our life to continue. It's as simple as that. But the problem is when we begin to ramp up entropy production unnecessarily, well, then our system begins to quote unquote heat up in a very literal sense, actually, when we're talking about climate, right? We have literally heated up our planet because of the increased entropy we have induced on the system. So entropy gives us life. And for our purposes, entropy itself is valuable when it is used or when it is allowed to propagate efficiently in a way that we have coordinated the system such that its maximum potential or usability has been pre-devised, that we have mapped it out in a way that we get maximum benefit from it. And when that happens, we don't use that much. We don't cause a lot of entropy. We can just use a little bit, just pick and pull here and there. And even with all of our people on the planet, even with all of our technology and all of our screens and computers, the amount of entropy increase that would happen if we were careful and if we didn't exacerbate entropy production and propagation by thinking we can sidestep thermodynamics, we could easily keep the world running the way it is right now with very little overhead, energy-wise. Okay, so back to harmonized state potential. The idea is to calculate value by outlining what the desired flow of energy is for any one system, and then determining how close the actual system is at matching the optimum calculation. So what I mean by this is look at okay, let's talk about photosynthesis. I'm not going to go into great detail and confuse anybody, but in photosynthesis, you have light that hits a leaf or the flower or whatever, and then it's converted into sugars inside the plant, is basically how it works, right? Well, there's an entire process. When the light hits a leaf, it goes into system 1 and system 2 and the Krebs cycle and the Calvin cycle and all of that. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens. So if we model that and we say, if we try to model it the best that we can and say, this is how it works, this is how much energy we're going to get, this is how much energy input there is, and how much, we think it's going to output, and this is our best model. Okay. Well, when the leaf actually produces that and follows that, then we match it against what we've already laid out, and we take the percentage of how close that is, and then that is the value based on how close the percentage of that system, of the efficiency of that system is to the original prediction. Now, because value is totally arbitrary, right? It's completely based on how you think any one thing is, based on your emotions and how something makes you feel. Then instead of trying to assign value to products and services after the fact, instead of, trying to say, oh, I like that shirt, I'm going to sell these shirts for like $25 a piece. That's attempting to put a price on the shirt after the fact. But instead, if we go to the beginning of the process of the development of the shirt and the fabric and, every little part of the process from A to B, and we make predictions for how well the system is going to adhere to our optimized prediction for how energy is going to be used in that system. And then we make a comparison afterwards. So we assign the value before, right? We give it a value in the sense that we are giving the system an optimized prediction. And then afterwards, we look at how closely the actual process was to our prediction. And then we use a percentage of that as the basis for assigning values to any one thing. So in this way, we can map the actual flow of entropy, energy in, energy out, the efficiency of the use of the energy, and the entropy that it produces onto what we think value is in a very efficient way. And that doesn't mean that you can't have sentimental value. You still can. It just doesn't tie in to the use of energy and the efficiency of that. So instead of having, like a little piece of cardboard that's 3 by 2 inches with a picture of Babe Ruth on it that runs for who knows how much, that doesn't add efficiency or meaning to the system. And in fact, it increases the entropy just by existing and having an arbitrary value that somebody made up. That is exactly the sort of stuff that needs to be minimized, or we're just going to continue to just escalate everything, and it's not going to end well for anybody. Anyway, so I think that is about it. That is the end of this episode. I will see you guys for the final part of the 15th episode next Monday. So this is me signing off. In the interest of transparency, the Great Filter Podcast is a Phobos Tech production. All proceeds go to funding the STEM Theory Research Project and other Phobos Tech research endeavors. If you enjoyed this episode, please show your support by sharing, liking, and subscribing. You may also help support our efforts with a small monthly donation. Thanks.